Hey guys, Tim Starnes from Cinesamples. In the previous Corrective EQ tutorial videos, I listed key frequency ranges for percussion and brass instruments, and I used Corrective EQ to balance them within a mix. In this tutorial, I focus on strings. Here's a list of the previous tutorials. Keep in mind, in this video, I'm focusing on Corrective EQ within one particular mixing situation, MIDI production using sample libraries in the orchestral and film score genre. I'm going to open a session that already has EQ applied to non-string tracks. We'll listen to the stem playback with no added EQ or effects on the string stems. These string samples originate from Cinestring's core. Now let's explore some key frequency ranges for each string stem. I'm going to start with the first stem. It's a tremolo trill stem, good for hearing the difference between the frequency ranges. The sub information is between 40 and 60 Hertz, gives a nice cushion to the strings. From 80 to 100 is that warm bass area. And just above that is the proximity effect area, which is also warm, but it can also get muddy if there's too much energy there. And too much energy between 200 to 400 Hertz gives the strings a kind of a stuffy sound. Between 500 and 1K can get boxy. Notice that a string ensemble is such a full bandwidth sound that the balance of energy in each frequency range is really critical. Too much is not good and too little is not good either. You'll find a nasal quality between 1 to 2K. Between 2 and 4K can sound pinched and edgy if there's too much. Between 4 to 7K gets thready, papery. And over 8K provides more air, and it also provides potential white noise, so be careful for that. These ranges can sometimes equate to the instruments themselves. For example, between 40 to 60 Hertz often gets the contrabass fundamental. Around 100 Hertz gets the average of the cello range. Between 150 and 200 gets the viola's average range. Here's that typical stuffy area around 300 Hertz. Be aware of that. Again, it's got to be the perfect balance, not too much and not too little. Here it gets boxy again between 500 and 1K. And here's that typical nasal area around 1.2 kilohertz. Be aware of that. And now the pinched, edgy area. You can use this area for some versatility and texture. If you want a softer texture to the strings, lower this area. Let's return to the full mix. The timbre of the strings is pretty good already, but maybe I want a softer texture to match the rest of the track. Let's start with the chord stem. I want to find that perfect frequency to reduce. I recommend this method to find it. Reduce the frequency somewhere around where you think it is, and then go higher. If the reduction frequency is too high, you'll hear the nasal quality below it. If the reduction frequency is too low, then you're going to hear the thready, paper-thin frequencies above it. That gets exposed. Then bring it back somewhere in the middle. You find that middle ground. Once you've found that right frequency, then return to the full mix and then decide how much of that frequency to reduce. Here's what that same EQ sounds like on the 2 strings short stems below. Now I'll solo just the first one. I'm going to verify the frequency. Then return to the full mix to set its reduction amount. I'm going to copy that to the second short stem as well, and then unmute that short stem. Now I'll bypass and re-engage the EQs on all active string tracks for comparison. You can hear how it softens the texture just a bit to blend them into the mix more. You may not need as much reverb on these string stems, or any at all, with this EQ treatment. Sometimes you want extra air and a reduction of that pinched, edgy area. You can usually accomplish both of these with a high shelf with a high Q value. Notice the shelf reduces the edgy area while raising the air. The center frequency of the shelf is determined by hearing the right edge frequency reduction and the right air frequency increase. So long as that air frequency increase is higher than that thready, papery frequency that's just below it, then you're good. Sometimes the string samples have more than enough air in them, and an increase like this only leads to more white noise. In this case, a simple reduction of that edge frequency is probably best. There's one more track below that is a hybrid of real strings and synth. For this video and this corrective EQ purpose, I'm going to treat it just like a string stem. So here's the full mix. I hear a kind of a stuffiness in the sound, maybe a boxiness also. These word descriptors have different meanings for everyone, so it's just best to show you what I'm hearing. So it sounds like this frequency around here. And what I'm hearing could muddy up the low end in the mix. Let's chase it down by the reduction method. If I go too low with the frequency, I can hear that boxy texture above it. And if I go too high with the frequency, I hear the stuffy sound below it exposed. So let's find the perfect middle ground. Once I've found it, now I go back to the full mix and set the reduction amount. I'll bypass and re-engage the EQ to compare. Notice how this helps to clear up the low end of the mix without reducing warmth. Again, I've only been focusing on corrective EQ in these videos thus far. There are other solutions that I hope to show you in the future. So look out for more tutorial videos coming up.